Good and bad news today as far as UK productivity is concerned. The UK has climbed a place in an annual table to 13th out of 181 countries and ahead of France, the United States and China. Analysis by KPMG highlights that education is key to improving what it calls the UK's productivity malaise. But it points out that Brexit could lead to a decrease in productivity levels because of lower trade and reduced EU migration. Simon Collins is KPMG's UK chairman and joins me now. So, Simon, productivity is a bit of an amorphous subject. What exactly do you mean by productivity?
I look at it as the ability of countries to compete internationally, to win in trade.
And why have we gone up the table?
We've gone up the table. We look at 181 countries. We've been going back a few years and looking, and we've published a league table since 2013. It's based on 5 factors, things like macroeconomic stability of the country, the institution stability of the country, human capital, talent, longevity, those sort of things, infrastructure. And when you weigh them all up, net, we've gone up. So it's good news. We've gone up from 14th to 13th.
And so why have we gone up?
We've gone up, I think, there's the catch. We've gone up, I think, disproportionately because of the strength of our institutions. So when you look at judiciary, when you look at strength of regulation, perceived cleanliness from corruption, the UK really scores very, very highly. That together with macroeconomic stability. What that hides is actually a slight decline on some of the other measures like infrastructure and education.
And these, of course, are absolutely pivotal going forward. I mean, where do we stand on things like education and infrastructure now? I mean, we hear an awful lot about infrastructure. Is anything actually really happening on the ground as far as you're concerned?
Well, plenty's happening. I mean, there's lots of announcements and lots of reality around infrastructure. And we're talking here not just about the sort of hard infrastructure like road and rail and air, which are really important, but also digital infrastructure as well, broadband and so on. The answer is lots of investment going in, but perhaps not as much as some of our true competitor countries. So we spend just under 3% of GDP, 2.7 on infrastructure. Canada, China, other countries who are our direct competitors are spending more.
It's quite interesting. You were talking about the strength of Britain's institutions and the transparency of decision making. I think you mentioned at one point. I mean, a lot of people would say that latter fact has been called into question at the moment, given that we have so much cloud around the UK's negotiating tactics and objectives on the Brexit negotiations.
I think if you put a really broad geopolitical backcloth on that, and then you look at the UK and you look at issues like strength of judiciary, independence, you look at the stability of institutions, then we still score off the scale. It's a very positive story. And then, you know, the positioning of the UK is really very strong. I think the exciting thing about what we're showing now is with continued investment and focus on infrastructure and education, we can actually invent a more relevant and winning economy for the next generation, so one that's based on higher skills, on digital economy and so on.
Now, as we've been hearing, there's a lot of uncertainty in the economy right now. I mean, you have your ear to the ground constantly. You have lots of clients all over the country. What are you hearing from them right now?
Well, we're hearing exactly that, hearing uncertainty. Actually, the way that I get told, and actually this is how we see it in our own business, is short-term, trading's holding up really well. We published 6% growth last year. Our clients are telling us short-term trading across most sectors, strong. As you ask them to go further out in time and further away from their own business, they start to get more nervous, more thoughtful and more uncertain.
Yeah, and people are always a bit more optimistic about their own circumstances than they are the economy as a whole, aren't they? Is that still the case?
Very much so, yes. I mean, the CEOs I talk to are, as again, short-term, their own business, very confident. As they move out to medium-term, they identify other factors that they can't control, macroeconomics, geopolitics, which could, consumer demand, for example, which could destabilise them. But generally, the sentiment is very strong and trading is strong.